The great hall of the Galactic Concord stretched across 3 kilometers of floating metal and crystal. Light from a dying star poured through windows that had watched empires rise and fall for 40,000 years. 12 elder species sat in judgment here, their representatives old beyond human understanding, their patience infinite, their interest in younger races almost non-existent. Ambassador stood alone at the center of the hall. She was small by human standards, smaller still compared to the massive alien forms that surrounded her. But her voice did not shake when she spoke, and her eyes did not look away from the creatures who held her species' fate in their clawed hands. The colony world you call Disputed Territory 7 has a name, she said. We call it Elysium. 40,000 humans live there. They have built homes. They have planted gardens. Children have been born on that world who have never seen Earth. The High Praetor shifted on his throne of bone and gold. Lord was ancient even by his species' standards. His scales faded to a dull gray, his eyes still sharp with the cruelty of a predator. He had conquered 100 worlds. He had exterminated species whose names the galaxy had forgotten. To him, humanity was nothing more than an insect that had crawled too far from its nest. Your children, said, his voice like stones grinding together, were born on territory. Territory we claimed before your species learned to make fire. Your presence there is theft. Your existence there is an insult. Did not flinch. With respect, High Praetor, they abandoned that region of space 30,000 years ago. No ship had visited that system in recorded history until we arrived. We did not steal what you had thrown away. Laughter rippled through the delegation. It was an ugly sound, wet and threatening. Silenced them with a gesture. You speak of history as if you understand it, he said. Your species is 300 years old in space. You are infants. You own nothing. You deserve nothing. And you will receive nothing except what we choose to give you. The other elder races watched in silence. The crystalline minds of beings of pure thought encased in geometric shells. The 1,000-legged elders of the deep who had ruled their corner of the galaxy since before most stars were born. The flame singers of whose bodies burned with the heart of their dying sun. None of them spoke. None of them cared. Humanity was beneath their notice, a brief flicker in the eternal dark. Pulled a data chip from her pocket and held it up. This contains our formal offer, joint development rights, shared scientific research, cultural exchange. We are not asking you to give up your claim. We are asking you to share a world that is large enough for both our peoples. Did not even look at the chip. There will be no sharing. There will be no negotiation. You will withdraw from our territory within 1 solar cycle, or we will remove you. And if we refuse? The question hung in the air. Several of the elder races turned their attention to the small human woman who had dared to challenge the rose from his throne. He was 3 meters tall, his body covered in armored scales, his claws capable of tearing through starship hulls. He walked slowly toward, each step echoing through the silent hall. When he reached her, he bent down until his face was centimeters from hers. His breath smelled of copper and death. If you refuse, he whispered, loud enough for every microphone to capture, we will not simply take Elysium. We will burn every human colony we can find. We will hunt your ships through the void. And when we find your precious Earth, we will crack it open like an egg and feast on what remains. Did not step back. She did not blink. She looked into the eyes of a monster who had destroyed civilizations and said simply, that would be unwise. Laughed again. Unwise. Little mammal, we have conquered species that could have crushed you with a thought. We have fought wars that lasted longer than your entire history. What could you possibly do to us? I hope you never have to find out. The praetor straightened and turned away, dismissing her with a wave of his claw. 1 solar cycle, then we come for you. Watched him return to his throne. She looked around at the elder races, searching for any sign of support, any hint that someone might intervene. She found nothing but cold indifference. Humanity was alone. She bowed once, the formal gesture of a diplomat accepting an unfavorable outcome, and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps were the only sound in the great hall. 3 days later, the Armada began to move. 3,000 capital ships, each one capable of destroying a moon, started their long journey toward human space. They moved slowly, deliberately, wanting humanity to see them coming, wanting them to feel the terror of approaching death. On Earth, the news spread quickly. Emergency broadcasts interrupted every channel. The United Solar Parliament called an emergency session that lasted 72 hours without break. Military commanders pulled ancient contingency plans from sealed vaults. Civilian transports began evacuating the outer colonies. And in a small office in Geneva, an elderly communications officer named Thomas Wright prepared humanity's final official response to the ultimatum. He had written speeches for presidents and generals. He had crafted words that had ended wars and started revolutions. But this message was different. This message was for history. He kept it simple, he kept it short, he made sure it would be remembered. The transmission reached the flagship 2 weeks later. Lord was dining on the flesh of a conquered species when his communications officer brought him the message. He read it once, snorted with contempt, and deleted it without a second thought. The message contained only 5 words: "You'll regret this war." Forgot about it before his meal was finished. It was, after all, just the desperate threat of a doomed species. What could humans possibly do against the might of the Dominion? He would spend the rest of his long life trying to answer that question. Across 17 star systems, humanity prepared for what was coming. They knew they could not win the first battle. They knew Earth might fall. But they also knew something that they had never learned, something that no elder race had ever understood about the small, fragile, short-lived creatures who called themselves human. They knew how to lose a battle and still win a war. The silence before the storm was ending, and when the storm finally broke, the galaxy would learn why it should have listened to humanity's warning. They would all regret this war. The Armada entered the Sol system on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Way watched them come through the tactical display of his flagship, the UES Defiance. 3,000 enemy ships against his 64. The math was simple. The math was death. "All ships," he said into the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral, you know what we're facing. You know the odds. I'm not going to lie to you and say we can win this battle." He paused, watching the red dots on his display grow closer. Behind him, Earth hung in the void, blue and green and beautiful. 8 billion people waited down there. His children, everyone he had ever loved. "But we can buy time," he continued. "Every hour we hold them here is another hour for evacuations. Every ship we destroy is one less ship that reaches Earth. Every minute we fight is a minute our people use to prepare." He took a deep breath. "Today we show them what humans are made of. Today we teach them the price of threatening our home. All ships engage at will, make them remember us." The Battle of Sol began. They expected it to be easy. Their commanders had studied human technology and found it primitive. Their soldiers had trained against human combat tactics and found them predictable. Their admirals had calculated the battle would last 6 hours at most. They were wrong. Human ships did not fight like other species. They did not form neat lines or follow predictable patterns. They scattered and regrouped, attacked and retreated, sacrificed themselves to protect each other. When their weapons failed, they rammed. When their engines died, they turned their reactors into bombs. When their ships broke apart, their crews kept fighting in emergency suits, firing hand weapons at passing enemy vessels. The lost 400 ships taking Earth orbit, 400, against 64 human defenders. It was impossible. It was unprecedented. It was terrifying. But it was not enough. Admiral died when the Defiance was finally overwhelmed, 12 hours into the battle. His last transmission was to his granddaughter, a young officer on one of the evacuating transports. "Don't forget us," he said. "Don't ever forget what they did, and don't ever stop fighting." Then his ship exploded, taking 3 enemy cruisers with it. The ground forces landed the next day. They expected the surface campaign to be simpler than the space battle. They expected civilians to surrender. They expected cities to fall without resistance. They found something else entirely. Every city was a fortress. Every building was a bunker. Every street was a killing ground. Old men fired weapons from windows. Children threw explosives from rooftops. Mothers defended their homes with kitchen knives when their guns ran empty. They had conquered 100 worlds, but they had never seen anything like this. In Tokyo, a 90-year-old woman held a subway station for 3 days with nothing but an antique rifle and absolute refusal to surrender. In Cairo, factory workers converted their machines into weapons and fought until their factory was rubble. A children's hospital was defended by its doctors and nurses until the last patient was evacuated. The commanders sent increasingly desperate reports back to Lord. The humans would not break. The humans would not surrender. The humans seemed to become stronger the more they lost. After 3 months of ground fighting, with casualties mounting beyond anything they had ever experienced, made a decision. If the humans would not surrender their world peacefully, he would make their world uninhabitable. The orbital bombardment began on a cold morning in November. Ships positioned themselves above every major population center and began firing. They targeted power plants and water supplies. They targeted hospitals and schools. They cracked the Earth itself, sending volcanic fire spreading across continents. Earth burned for 5 months. But even as their world died around them, humans kept fighting. They retreated into underground bunkers. They launched guerrilla attacks from the ruins. They made the pay for every kilometer of scorched earth with blood and fire. The last human broadcast from Earth came from the ruins of Geneva, where the United Solar Parliament had once met. A young soldier named Maria Santos stood in front of a broken camera, her face covered in blood and ash. Behind her, the remains of the Parliament building smoldered. "My name is Maria Santos," she said. "I am 19 years old. I was born in Ayers. I wanted to be a teacher." She smiled, and there was something terrifying in that smile. Something that made even the who watched the transmission feel a chill in their cold blood. "I am the last soldier in Geneva. My unit is dead. My family is dead. My city is dead. Your soldiers are coming for me now. I can hear them outside." She held up a detonator in her right hand. "But before I go, I want you to know something. I want you to remember something. We are not extinct. We are scattered across 17 star systems. We are hiding in places you will never find. We are raising our children on stories of what you did here." The camera shook. Voices echoed in the background, shouting in their grinding language. "You think you've won," Maria said. "You think this is over, but this is just the beginning. We will remember Earth. We will remember everyone you killed. And one day, when you've forgotten about us, when you think you're safe, we will come for you." She lifted the detonator higher. "You'll regret this war." The transmission ended in a flash of white light. The Galactic Concord formally recorded the extinction of humanity 3 days later. Lord held a celebration that lasted a month. He declared himself the cleanser of vermin, the purifier of the galaxy. He added Earth's location to his list of conquered territories. He never wondered about the colony ships that had fled into deep space. He never investigated the hidden stations in the asteroid belt that had gone dark before his fleet arrived. He never questioned why so many human records had been erased, why so many population counts didn't match, why so many ships had simply vanished. He assumed humanity was dead. He assumed his victory was complete. He assumed the universe would forget the small, fragile creatures who had dared to defy him. He was wrong about all of it. In the dark between stars, in hidden places that no sensor could find, humanity was not dying. Humanity was preparing. Parents were teaching their children about Earth. Engineers were studying technology. Soldiers were training for a war that might not come for generations. And everywhere, on every hidden station and drifting ship, humans repeated the same words to each other, the same promise, the same oath. We remember Earth, we will return, and they will regret this war. 50 years passed like a slow poison. At first, the Dominion celebrated its victory over the human vermin. Lord built monuments to himself on the burned surface of Earth. He paraded captured human artifacts through his capital. He told stories of the glorious conquest to young who had never seen a human face. But as the decades crawled by, strange things began to happen. It started small. A supply convoy disappeared in the outer regions of space. The official report blamed pirates. No one investigated further. Then a military outpost on the edge of the empire went silent. When reinforcements arrived, they found the station empty. No bodies, no signs of battle, just silence and a single phrase painted on the wall in blood: "We remember Earth." The High Command dismissed it as a hoax. Perhaps some criminal gang was using human symbols to frighten their victims. Perhaps some disgruntled soldier was playing a cruel joke. There was no way it could be actual humans. The humans were extinct. Then entire fleets began to vanish. Patrol Group 7 disappeared near the nebula. 42 ships, 6,000 soldiers, gone without a distress signal. Search parties found nothing but drifting debris and that same phrase, written in the stars themselves using the burning wreckage of vessels: "We remember Earth." The Dominion's intelligence service began a quiet investigation. They collected every report of unusual activity, every rumor of ghost ships, every whispered story of impossible attacks. The pattern they found made their blood run cold. The attacks were not random. They targeted specific supply lines, specific commanders, specific technologies. Someone was studying someone was learning their weaknesses, someone was testing their defenses. And whoever it was, they were patient, terribly, impossibly patient. Lord, now ancient and paranoid, demanded answers. He surrounded himself with guards. He slept in a different room each night. He saw human ghosts in every shadow. "It's impossible," his advisors told him. "We destroyed them. We watched their world burn." "Then explain," hissed, "how a dead species is killing my soldiers." No one could explain. No one wanted to admit the truth that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Humanity had not died on Earth. Humanity had scattered to the darkness between stars, and now they were coming back. The first confirmed human sighting in 50 years happened on a mining colony in the outer territories. A young mining supervisor named as was working late when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned and found himself face to face with a creature from his nightmares. She was small by standards, barely reaching his chest. Her skin was pale, marked with scars that told stories of old battles. One of her eyes was missing, replaced by a metal implant that glowed faintly red. She wore armor that looked like it had been cobbled together from a dozen different sources, some of it unmistakably in origin. What as started to say. "Don't scream," the human said. Her was perfect without a trace of accent. "I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to deliver a message." A message, as backed away his claws extended. From who? The human smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "From humanity. We want your leaders to know that we're still here. We want them to know that we're watching. And we want them to know that we're almost ready." Ready for what? For the war to truly begin. She turned and walked into the shadows. Az tried to follow, but she was gone, vanished like smoke. The only evidence of her visit was a small metal disc she had left behind. When Az examined it, he found it contained a single image: Earth, as it had looked before they arrived, green and blue and alive. Beneath the image were 3 words: We remember Earth. The disk reached Lord's hands within a week. He stared at it for hours, his ancient mind struggling to accept what it meant. Find her, he ordered. Find all of them, hunt them down and destroy them. His soldiers tried. They searched the mining colony for days, examining every shadow, scanning every corner. They found nothing. The human had been a ghost, appearing and disappearing at will. Similar encounters began happening across space. Humans appeared on military bases, on civilian stations, in the homes of high-ranking officials. They never attacked unless threatened. They always delivered the same message. They always vanished without a trace. The Dominion's greatest scientists tried to understand how humans were moving unseen through their territory. They scanned for unusual energy signatures. They searched for hidden bases. They found nothing but more questions. A captured human insurgent was finally brought before Lord 6 months later. She had been caught trying to plant explosives in a shipyard and had killed 12 soldiers before being subdued. When the guards dragged her into his throne room, she was covered in blood and burns, barely able to stand. But she was smiling. Descended from his throne and approached her. "What are you?" he demanded. "How are you still alive?" The human laughed. It was a quiet sound, almost gentle. "We're what you made us. You thought killing Earth would break us. Instead, you forged us. Every human alive remembers what you did. Every human child grows up knowing your face, your name, your crimes. Your insects spat. Your vermin, you should have died with your world." "Maybe," the human said, "but we didn't, and now we're everywhere. In your supply lines, in your military bases, in your government. You've spent 50 years thinking you won. You never realized that you were just giving us time to prepare." Grabbed her by the throat. "Prepare for what?" The human met his eyes without fear. "For the reckoning." She said nothing else. She died without revealing a single piece of useful information, but the damage was already done. A scientist named Al was assigned to analyze all the data from 50 years of human activity. He spent months examining attack patterns, mapping disappearances, studying every piece of evidence. When he finally presented his findings to the High Command, his voice was shaking. "They're not attacking randomly," he said. "Every strike, every sabotage, every infiltration, they form a pattern. They're testing our defenses. They're learning our weaknesses. They're mapping our territory." "For what purpose?" a general demanded. Al pulled up a holographic map. Thousands of points of light marked human activity across 50 years. Slowly, he connected them, drawing lines between attacks, showing the pattern he had discovered. The lines formed a spiral, and the spiral pointed directly at the... "They're not just surviving," Al whispered. "They're planning an invasion, and based on these patterns, based on how long they've been preparing, based on everything they've learned about us." He paused, his voice failing him. "They're almost ready." The room fell silent. Outside the window, the stars seemed darker than before, and somewhere in that darkness, humanity was watching, waiting and preparing to keep its promise. They would regret this war. The human fleets came out of the darkness like ghosts becoming real. 73 years after the fall of Earth, 73 years of patience and preparation and cold burning rage, they finally emerged. Not from one direction, but from everywhere. From the spaces between stars where no sensor could reach. From hidden shipyards in empty systems that they had never bothered to explore. From places so dark and distant that the galaxy itself had forgotten they existed. And there were thousands of them. Admiral Maya stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Remembrance. She was the granddaughter of Wei, the admiral who had died defending Earth. She had been 3 years old when her world burned. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. "All fleets," she said into the communication network that linked every human ship, every human station, every human survivor across the galaxy. "This is Admiral. Today, we keep our promise." They detected them too late. By the time their long-range sensors registered the approaching armada, human ships were already inside their defensive perimeter. Alarms screamed across the Dominion. Fleets scrambled. Commanders shouted contradictory orders. Lord, now so old he could barely stand, watched the tactical display from his throne room. The image showed him something impossible. Human ships, thousands of them advancing in perfect formation, and their technology. That's not possible, his chief scientist whispered. Those weapon signatures, those are designs, but they've been modified, improved. They're more powerful than anything we have. How? Demanded. How did they get our technology? They've had 50 years to study us, the scientist said. 50 years of captured ships and stolen data. 50 years to take our weapons and make them better. The first defense fleet engaged the human advance near the system. It was a major fleet, 200 capital ships, commanded by one of the Dominion's most experienced admirals. The battle lasted 4 hours. The humans lost 12 ships. They lost everything. The survivors sent a desperate message back to High Command before they died. It contained a single observation. They fight like we've never seen. They move as one. They anticipate every tactic. They know us better than we know ourselves. More battles followed. More fleets were destroyed. The humans moved with a coordination that the galaxy had never witnessed. Their ships communicated faster than thought, adjusting strategies in real time, supporting each other without hesitation. They had spent 73 years training for this war, and it showed in every maneuver. But perhaps more terrifying than the human fleets was what happened behind lines. The Dominion had conquered dozens of species over the. Most had been broken, their cultures destroyed, their peoples reduced to slavery. They had assumed their subjects were loyal, or at least too afraid to rebel. They were wrong. On 100 worlds, subject species rose up at the same moment. They attacked garrisons, sabotaged supply lines, freed prisoners, and leading each rebellion was a human, an advisor, a coordinator, someone who had been living among the subject species for years, maybe decades, waiting for this day. They planned this, a general said, staring at reports of simultaneous uprisings across the empire. They've been planning this for generations. They didn't just prepare a military invasion. They prepared a revolution. The Galactic conquered, the assembly of elder races that had watched humanity's destruction with cold indifference, finally began to pay attention. Observers were sent to monitor the conflict. Diplomatic channels were opened, and in their private communications, the elder races admitted a truth that surprised them. They wanted the to fall. The Dominion had been a threat to everyone for. Their cruelty was legendary, their ambition endless. The elder races had tolerated them because no one wanted to pay the cost of opposing them. But now humanity was doing what no one else had dared to do. And they were winning. One by one, fortress worlds fell. Not destroyed, but captured. The humans didn't glass planets or exterminate populations. They landed ground forces and fought their way through, taking military installations intact, arresting war criminals, protecting civilians. Why aren't they killing everyone? A prisoner asked his human guard. We would kill everyone. We killed everyone on Earth. The guard, a young woman whose grandmother had died in the bombardment of Tokyo, looked at him for a long moment before answering. Because we're not you, she said. We never were. Lord ordered his remaining fleets to converge on the. Every ship that could move, every soldier that could fight, every weapon that could fire was brought to defend a prime. The ancient ruler stood in his throne room, surrounded by guards, watching his empire crumble around him. A communication request came through on a channel that shouldn't have existed. Accepted it. Maya's face appeared on his screen. She was calm, she was cold, she was terrifying. Lord, she said, do you remember my grandfather, Admiral Wei? He died defending Earth. He bought time for evacuation ships to escape, ships that carried the parents of the people now destroying your empire. Said nothing. Do you remember, Ambassador? She warned you. She told you we would not surrender quietly. She offered peace and you laughed at her. Get to your point, spat. My point is simple. You killed our world. You burned our children. You tried to erase us from existence. And you thought we would simply disappear. Maya leaned forward, her eyes hard as diamonds. We are humanity. We do not forget, we do not forgive, and we do not lose. She smiled, and it was the same terrifying smile that Maria Santos had worn in her final broadcast 73 years ago. You'll regret this war. The transmission ended. The next day, the human armada arrived at a prime. The sky filled with warships, so many that they blotted out the stars. The people of the looked up and saw their doom descending. But it would not be the doom they expected. Humanity had learned from its enemies, but it had not become them, and what came next would prove to the galaxy what humans truly were. Not monsters, not conquerors, something far more dangerous. Survivors. The people of a prime waited for fire to fall from the sky. They had seen what their own fleets did to conquered worlds. They had watched recordings of Earth burning. They had grown up on stories of total war, of extermination, of species erased from existence. Now the humans had come, and they expected to die the same way they had killed. But the fire never came. Instead, human descended through the atmosphere, landing outside major cities rather than on top of them. Soldiers in powered armor established perimeters. Supply ships brought food, water, and medical equipment. Broadcasts in perfect language explained what was happening. We are not here to destroy you, the broadcast said. We are here to end the war. Civilian populations will not be harmed. Military forces that surrender will be treated according to galactic law. Resistance will be met with appropriate force, but only against military targets. Many did not believe it. Centuries of their own brutal history had taught them that war meant extermination. Resistance groups formed in several cities, convinced that the humans were simply waiting to reveal their true nature. The humans did not respond with orbital bombardment. They responded with patience. In the city of, a militia took control of a civilian hospital, using patients as shields. The human commander in that sector, a colonel named David, was advised to destroy the building from orbit. He refused. Those are civilians inside, he said. We didn't come all this way to become what we're fighting against. His troops spent 3 days negotiating with the militia. They brought food to the hostages. They offered safe passage to any fighter who wanted to surrender. When the militia's leader finally agreed to meet with face-to-face, he was shocked to find a human who spoke his language, understood his culture, and genuinely wanted to end the standoff without bloodshed. Why? The militia leader asked. Why don't you just kill us? We killed billions of your people. We burned your world. Was quiet for a long moment. My grandmother died on Earth, he said. She was a teacher. She stayed behind to help evacuate her students. The last message my family received from her was a recording of her singing a lullaby to frightened children while bombs fell around her. The militia leader waited for the threat, the demand for revenge. She taught me, continued, that what we do in our darkest moments defines who we are. Your people showed us what they were when they burned Earth. Now we're showing you what we are. The militia surrendered the next morning. The conquest of a prime took 6 months, not because the humans lacked the power to end it faster, but because they refused to use methods that would have made the victory meaningless. They fought building by building, block by block, always offering surrender, always protecting civilians, always proving that they were something different from their enemies. Lord was captured in his throne room, surrounded by the bodies of his guards. He had refused to surrender, refused to run, refused to believe that his empire could truly fall. When human soldiers entered his chamber, he expected immediate execution. Instead, they read him his rights under galactic law. The trial of Lord was broadcast across the galaxy. Every elder race watched. Every subject species that had suffered under rule watched. Every human survivor watched. The evidence was overwhelming. Recordings of his orders, testimonies from survivors, documentation of the genocide against humanity. The trial lasted 3 months, and when the verdict came, no one was surprised. Guilty of genocide, guilty of crimes against sentience, guilty of waging wars of extermination. The sentence, however, surprised everyone. Admiral Maya delivered it personally. "Lord," she said, "you will not be executed. Death would be too quick, too clean, too similar to what you inflicted on others." His ancient eyes widened with confusion. "Instead, you will live. You will be transported to Earth, which we are rebuilding, and you will spend the rest of your natural life there, tending the memorial gardens that honor our dead. You will learn the names of the people you killed. You will care for the flowers that grow from their ashes, and every day, for however many years you have left, you will remember what you did." Was taken away in chains. He would live another 40 years on Earth, surrounded by monuments to his victims, forced to watch humanity rebuild what he had destroyed. The Galactic Concord sent envoys to negotiate with humanity's new government. They expected demands for territory, for power, for revenge against the elder races who had allowed Earth to burn. They were prepared to pay almost any price to avoid becoming humanity's next target. Maya met with them in a rebuilt conference hall on the surface of Earth. The walls were transparent, showing the green forests and blue seas that were slowly returning to the wounded planet. "We don't want your empires," she told them. "We don't want your worlds. We want only what we've always wanted: to exist, to grow, to find our own path among the stars." "Then what do you want from us?" the Concord senior representative asked. Maya turned to look out at the recovering landscape. "I want you to remember what happened here. Remember what they did when they thought they were untouchable. Remember what humanity became when we had no other choice." She faced them again, and her expression was not threatening, but it was not gentle either. "Remember that we could have destroyed them. We could have wiped them from existence the way they tried to wipe us. We chose not to. But that choice was made once. If anyone ever threatens humanity again, if anyone ever thinks we're too weak or too small or too insignificant to matter." She let the silence speak for her. The elder races understood. They returned to there and told their leaders what they had learned. Humanity was no longer a minor species to be ignored or destroyed. Humanity was something new in the galaxy, a power that chose mercy when it could have chosen massacre, but which would never be threatened again. A century passed. Earth bloomed with life once more, its atmosphere restored, its cities rebuilt, its people healed. Humanity spread across the galaxy, welcomed now rather than ignored. They, reduced to a single world and stripped of their military, slowly learned to live without conquest. On the anniversary of Earth's fall, a diplomat visited the memorial that covered an entire continent. He walked among the pillars of black stone, each one carved with names of the dead. Billions of names, more than he could read in 100 lifetimes. He found Maya sitting before the wall that held her family's names. She was ancient now, her hair white, her body frail, but her eyes still held the fire that had led humanity back from extinction. "Why didn't you destroy us?" he asked. "We would have destroyed you. We did destroy you almost completely. Why did you show mercy?" Maya was quiet for a long moment, looking at the names of her grandmother, her parents, her brothers and sisters who had died in the bombardment. "Because we're not you," she said finally. "We never were. Your people thought strength meant cruelty. You thought power meant destruction. You thought the only way to win was to annihilate your enemies completely." She reached out and touched the stone, her fingers tracing the letters of her grandmother's name. "We learned something different. We learned that true strength is restraint. True power is the ability to destroy and choosing not to. True victory is winning without becoming the monster you fought against. The diplomat bowed his head. The old lords were fools. Yes, Maya agreed. They were, we tried to tell them. The very first day, the very last message from Earth. She stood slowly, painfully, leaning on a cane carved from wood grown in Earth's new forests. She looked up at the stars visible in the daylight sky, a gift from the restored atmosphere. They should have listened, she said. They should have understood what those words really meant. What did they mean? The diplomat asked. Maya smiled, and for a moment she looked like the young admiral who had led humanity out of the darkness, the warrior who had conquered an empire without becoming a tyrant, the leader who had chosen mercy when revenge would have been so much easier. They meant that war with humanity is never worth the cost, not because we're the most powerful, not because we're the most advanced, but because we never give up, we never forget, and we never become the evil we fight against. She started walking toward the memorial's exit, moving slowly among the endless names of the dead. You'll regret this war, she said one final time, not as a threat but as a lesson, a warning for any who might someday forget. That's what we told them, that's what we proved, and that's what the galaxy will remember. Behind her, the sun set over a reborn Earth, painting the sky in colors that humanity had thought they would never see again. And in the growing darkness, the stars came out one by one, witnesses to a species that had fallen to the edge of extinction and climbed back to stand among the heavens. Humanity had regretted nothing, but those who had tried to destroy them would regret it forever.